All right. Yeah, thanks, Lorenzo. It's a pleasure for us to be here today, sitting on stage this time, not in the audience. I know it's a big honor actually to be here. Everybody here is super smart, and yeah, we kind of feel a little bit out of place. I will try and put on a good show for you. We know this is the last talk before lunch, so blood sugar levels must be low, and we have a live demo coming up, so woo, risk and some fun for you guys to see. So this is the first time we get to show off what we've been working on for the last few years in a conference. So it's a really, really big day for us, and I hope you bear with us and are as excited as we are about what we're about to show. Digital Samba has been around for about 20 years. We've been building video conferencing platforms pretty much from the beginning. We always thought that the logical thing for us as software people was always that things should be easily accessible and accessible from the browser. Is that what that meant for us? There should not be any software. And back then it was Flash. Now it's WebRTC, and of course it's made the world a lot better. We love building great products. We love having amazing UI, and we also love developers because that's what we are at heart. So what we wanted to do is, now that video conferencing became mainstream, is we wanted to allow developers, not necessarily WebRTC or video conferencing developers, but all other types of developers, to add video conferencing to their applications with just a couple of lines of code. And that was just a logical next step for us. We understood now that everybody understood the power of video conferencing, that obviously people must now be thinking, how can I add video to my application? We've been using Zoom, we've been using Teams. There must be a way for me to be able to add this to my particular vertical, that particular use case. And not everybody has an amazing video conferencing development team, because that it is what it takes to build a great video conferencing platform. So we thought the world is missing a simple widget, something that you can add to your application with just a couple of lines of code. And we wanted something that's gold standard, something that allows up to 100 video conferencing users, all with their camera on, 49 streams per page. That's what people see in Zoom and Teams. You should have nothing less. We wanted to be able to use it for virtual classrooms, for webinars. So our platform allows up to 2,000 users with 15 broadcasters. You can configure it whichever way you want. You can customize it. And yeah, so we're going to show you this today. Conan, my esteemed colleague, is our head of operations, and I founded the company about 20 years ago. So this is the typical journey that companies tend to go through. And please apologies for my awful handwriting, but we do have a y-axis. The y-axis is cost in this case, and the x-axis is customizability. So in the bottom left, you have off-the-shelf solutions such as Zoom and Teams. That's kind of where it starts, and people think maybe they've used some kind of a tool like Calendly to add video conferencing to their application, and then they think, but we can do better. We want to have something much more integrated. We want to have a seamless user experience between my application and the video conferencing piece. So then typically they go all the way up to a lot of the side of the spectrum and start to think, okay, I can build this myself. WebRTC, it's easy, and I can just connect a couple of peers together. And maybe then they figure out, hey, maybe I need turn, and there are a whole bunch of other components, signaling. What is all of this nonsense? That sounds very complicated. And then they find some virtual video platform as a service, such as Agora or Daily, which also now solves some of the issues, but is still a long, long way from a full video conferencing experience with remote muting, user management roles, all the other features that you've seen in Zoom and Teams. You're really far away from that. Simon's speech was all about university courses and how hard it is to build WebRTC. So there must be an easier way. And we figured what we'll do is we'll put something into the middle of that, a pre-built component that you can add to your application. And of course, that also comes with some limitations. By giving you a pre-built component, you lose some customizability, some flexibility. So we added an SDK layer on top of it, a JavaScript SDK, which allows you to customize it, to brand it, to make it look like it's yours. And this SDK also feeds information back into your application. So it has to be a full circle, not just the creation of the tool, but also get information back out of it. And we're going to show you a lot of how all of these things work and look. So This is what our front end looks like. At first glance, it's a standard video conferencing application with a ton of different components. It has a lot of features built in. It's got your user roles, which I think is a very important piece, especially once you start to run larger sessions. You can configure all of this. We spend, and another thing that's very important about the way we built Digital Samba is that it's built with a privacy-first mindset. And this is something that we think is extremely important in the time that we live in today. We're seeing the advent of artificial intelligence, which is able to read and listen to pretty much everything that we talk about. It can transcribe it to text. We're now starting to run it through other LLMs. We must be conscious of where this information that we're sharing over the internet, over video calls, where we do a lot of private stuff, psychotherapy sessions, for example, or even a lot of business secrets get shared this way. We should be very, very conscious about where all this information sits. And this is something that is part of the Digital Samba promise. So, for example, we also use Janus's insertable streams technology for end-to-end encryption. We use a lot or pretty much all of the Janus capabilities that we can get. I will definitely want to talk to you, Lorenzo, about bandwidth estimations. That's something that we're not currently doing, but would be interested in looking into. So here's like a use case that is built with Digital Samba, where you can see that the video conference is a central piece of a larger application. In this case, it's a telemedical application. The company that uses Digital Samba to integrate or to make video conferencing part of their promise should be able to trust us. Should be able to understand where the information flows, that of its patients flows, and privacy is very much ingrained into Digital Samba's company. We're a European company. We live on a continent which has the strongest privacy framework. So this goes way beyond just technology, but also very much involves legal considerations. So here's how we think this should work. You plug into Digital Samba via the API, and then you tune it or fine-tune it via the SDK. We really try to abstract everything, give you access as developers with very simple API calls, and even AI in this case is built in. And we're demoing this today as well for the very first time. So here's our promise: add video conferencing to your application in minutes rather than months, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is now and show you how it's done. So finally, we can show some code, something a little bit more interesting. You see over here just a very simple PHP piece of code, which is in this case a post, that's all it takes to create a Digital Samba video conferencing room. The dashboard that we delivered to you looks like this. You can basically see that these are rooms that I've created previously. The application comes with a bunch of statistics, and you basically have a dashboard where you have full control over what is happening within all of your sessions. It goes beyond the scope of this call to be able to look at all of the features that it has, but you can look at past sessions, and each session then has information associated to it where you have a stream of all the usage that happened within that session for troubleshooting and so on. And all of this information is available to you via API calls as developers as well. So you again, get a very abstracted view of what's happening within your platform. So if we now look at this simple PHP application that I showed, super simple. I click a button, and if the internet is working, second please. Then we have instantiated the room. Unfortunately, the pop-up didn't work, but that is how it is with live demos. Let's try that one more time. So you can see that when I press the start video call button, yeah, this is the Digital Samba call being instantiated in real time. And I'm not going to go into the room right now because that's going to be part of Conan's piece. But that's all it takes to generate a Digital Samba call. So yeah, as I showed you over here, this then fires against our API and creates the room. And the room itself comes with a ton of configuration options. We only showed a few here, but this is really where you can configure how you want the session to work for you for your particular use case. You can brand it, you can configure it, so these are the parameters that I had passed in just now. You can choose which features you want to have, and you have an intricate role system, and of course recordings and so on. Pretty much everything you want and expect from a Teams or Zoom call. So Conan, at this point, I'll hand over to you for your demo.
Okay, so as Rob has been explaining, we see our job as a service provider to abstract all this complex WebRTC stuff and provide simple tools for developers to put video conferencing and webinars under their website. The challenge I had been set here was to get it in as few lines of code as possible, and that's what this demo is going to consist of. And I'll just run through this. Right, so I have a very simple web page. Here, I load our SDK, and I also have a little script that I'm going to work on. Our SDK works on elements that are on the DOM, so we need to defer the loading of that script until all them elements are loaded. I'll show you a little web page. I have a fondness for pink divs, but just don't interrogate me too much on that. So that's my simple web page, and I just want to embed video conferencing into that. So my script is here. I've just pre-made a couple lines of code. Right, so these first couple of lines, I'm just setting up a couple of variables. I'm setting one variable, this embed element variable, and I'm picking up my nice pink div from my web page, and that's how I'm going to refer to that div going forward. Also, the room URL is going to relate to a room on the platform, which Rob's already shown how to create that. Typically, this is going to be created through the API. Okay. So our pre-built model is all iframe based, and our SDK gives you a range of options that they embed this iframe onto your website. From here, I have set up another variable. Whoops. Taking huge risks trying to do this live, but it's simple enough. Okay, so this is another variable, the Samba frame, and this is an instance, this is of our digital Samba embedded class. So I'm creating an object from this class. I'm just setting in a couple of initial parameters that I've shown, our room URL parameter and the embed element, which is the div where I want to embed the conference into. We have another set of little properties which I need to set before I can put load the iframe into my element. This is antis-props. This is just we tell the class some stuff about the iframe. So I just make a borderless iframe and take up the full width and height of the div. And then the last thing is we call the load method to just basically load our Samba frame using these little simple properties that we've set up. So we have to hope that's going to work. So there it is. That just loads video conferencing into my site, and because we're pre-built, we have a range of tools that's just probably worth references. We have a whiteboard, captioning, and these are tools that developers can just, oh, there we go, I want the Q&A, and we've built all these tools for them, so they don't have to go away and build them themselves. I will quickly, so that's at roughly about 4 lines. My challenge was to get video comments on their website in as few lines possible. I've done it in about 4. I probably could have shortcutted that further if I hadn't referred to my variables in a slightly different way. I will try and now to reduce our SDK down to something as basic as this. I find is a bit sad because we have dozens and dozens of properties, events, and methods that you can call from this SDK. I will just briefly show a couple of these and just show how we're empowering developers to create interesting video-enabled applications on their website. So I'm just going to steal this little bit. This is another property we have, is the room settings, and I'm just going to disable the showing the toolbar because I just want to show how we can allow developers to create their own controls on their website to control their video conference. This token is effectively how you set identities of your connected user. In the real world, you'll probably have some server-side component generating this token and then loading them into the front end in the context of the user. They have like roles, you know, the username and all the little bits that I will not bore people with. So these are just some controls I was just dabbling around that I pre-made. So you can see here the listeners. So I just created a couple of divs here at the bottom. I'll show them in a little second. On click listeners. So whenever these, we call the Samba frame object again, and we're calling these methods toggle video, toggle audio, toggle captions, start screen share. I'm sure you can see, we like to think we've made this really simple for developers. No, there's no odd terms, so we just try to simplify everything. So I think it's control. So you see this time we went straight into the conference under this identity that the token allowed for rather than the little login screen, and I have just some very basic controls down here. I can turn off my video, I can turn it on, we can turn on captions, we can turn them off, and you know, etc. So it's just to give you a flavor. As I say, I'm a bit sad because you can see the methods with dozens of them. It's just to give you a flavor of you know, the power that we think this SDK gives developers. Yeah, so let me close that one though. Where are we going from here, Rob? Good. Yeah. You want the laptop again?
All right, thanks, Conan. So we try to show here how easy it is to add a video conference to your application, but then also customize it and make it yours, right? Because as product builders, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that this thing feels and acts the way that you want it to, and not as maybe some third-party tools such as Zoom or Teams did. So how does this thing work under the hood? That's under our bonnet over here. It's obviously not the simplest tech stack, but at the same time, it's a similar tech stack to what you just saw previously, and you've probably seen in many other, if you've built this type of application, then that's kind of where you're gonna end up. We don't really do any magic there. What's special about it is that we do everything with this privacy first and European mindset. So we specifically do not work with AWS or any of the other US hyperscalers. We make sure that all data, you know, we believe data sovereignty is important in Europe. We make sure we work only with European providers. We handpicked European providers in this case. So we work with LeaseWeb for our bare metals, and we work with Scaleway and Exoscale as a fallback for all of the, you know, the scaling stuff. These are very exciting companies that I also recommend that you have a look at if you're looking to work with European providers instead of US. It's similar, you know, it's an easy transition from one to the other. So yeah, as we, you know, by going with digital Samba rather than building your own, you save yourself the headaches of having to do all of this stuff yourself. This slide just really shows that the path to success is never a straight line. We've heard this a few times as well before already. You know, many things happen over the years, technologies change. You guys at Janus were saying that version numbers are important. I cannot stress that enough. We went with Corento first because they had a high version number. that really bit us in the behind because it really was not stable. We could not get it to work. We tried really hard, and we had to basically take the heart out of our, it was like operating on a live patient and switching out the heart. We wanted to go with Jitsi at some point, which is an incredible project, and we'll be talking more about Sal's project a little bit later on as well. It did not allow us the level of customizability that we had envisaged at the time, and only then did we find Janus. So we wish we would have found Janus earlier, and I think there's no turning back for us. Janus is also a sovereign company, which again is something that's very important to us. We love Janus. Happy 10th birthday, Janus. So I think we're all here to celebrate. And Conan, maybe you can talk a little bit more about what our experience with Janus was.
Yeah. So, as I said, we made a couple, I won't call them mistakes, I'll just call them missteps with some of the previous media engines that we'd chosen. But once we found Janus, we just liked everything about it. We liked the community, we liked Lorenzo and his team. It's been, I suppose, the most critical thing as a business, and you're trying to please users, it needs to be reliable and the performance needs to be there. And for the most part, Janus, it's done the force, and we've no reason to throw it out. We went, so we don't like to think, we don't ask, we like to think we don't ask for too much support from the mediocre team, but when we do, we have found them responsive and always very helpful. So we've arrived, Digital Samba has arrived at a place where Janus is the media engine that powers a significant part of the Digital Samba project. Now, from there, no matter how useful we found Janus, it's on its own does not solve every problem. Carrying media across the internet is expensive. It's resource intensive, which makes it ultimately expensive. So we, as from Rob's earlier slide, we do prefer a physical server-based deployment strategy. We feel there's more certainty there, and we prefer to deploy our components like that. But with Janus, and if you want to, with media, if you want to carry a lot of media, across the internet at scale, for short periods of time, you can't be left with a situation where we have 90% servers, physical servers sat around dormant 90% of the time. So we do have to go on demand, and we do need to go. So we have went the on-demand route, and we've chosen a couple of EU-based cloud providers. We elected to use two providers for redundancy and resiliency reasons, plus the European-based stuff that Rob's already talked about. We use instances from these providers and much the way you would use an AW2 EC2 instance. Their APIs are very similar. Both these vendors have quirks in their pricing models, but we have found that they're actually can be a bit cheaper than AWS. So don't be married under these American super companies. There's other vendors out there, and they might even find you can get a bargain here or there. So this is an interesting contrast from Dennis's speech. He's went the Kubernetes route. We've chosen a slightly different route, but we're both trying to solve similar problems. So within this, again, this is horizontal scaling. We arrived there in the same way as Dennis and his team has. So roughly how we do this is we sort of poll the servers and for certain metrics. Once the server has about 300 users on it, once the server is about 65% CPU usage or 65% bandwidth, let's just we say, right, it's probably time now where we need to get a large server going. It's sort of on that basis that we start new servers. I remember Dennis mentioned on about 50%, and you have to err on the side of conservative. You don't want to let down your end users ultimately. So it does a simple approach. Like Dennis, we like simple approaches that solve complex problems, and for this is what has worked really well for it. We do have further strands of this logic. For example, we would count lobby users as an already subscribing user. So, so it sort of makes sense that these guys are going to eventually subscribe to streams. So we need to have servers ready for that time when the lobby is released. In the worst case scenario, there is about 30-40 second time wait. If we don't catch it, we don't have the server ready. But our goal is to have media servers ready at all times to support whatever load is on our platform at any particular time, whether these spikes and load are predictable or not predictable. Our target is always to have the servers ready for them. So this is the video conferencing use case. This is where we again use the video plugin. We are talking very similar tech stacks, and we allow up to 100 publishers per room. We spread rooms across media servers and allocate new rooms to the media. Allocate a new room to the media server with the lowest resource usage when that room is created. If again we run back and not fall back, if all available media servers are reaching those resource thresholds that I mentioned earlier, we start new instances to support the growing number of rooms that are on our platform. The other use case is the webinar use case, and this again I've noticed a couple of talks, and we've also been arriving at similar solutions where we're using the video plugin, the video room plugin for publishers, and then the streaming plugin to support an increasing amount of subscribers. So right now we allow about 30 publishers per room and up to 2,000 subscribers. That is a wee bit arbitrary, and we're just sort of at this minute we're saying we've load tested as far as 2,000, but theoretically, and as long as our front ends can also support this, we can keep going. We can keep pushing this number up and up and up, because the underlying technology from Janus supports that allows us to do things like that. So it's similar. So the way we use it, it's very simple. Again, we have the video room plugin, and then we have streaming room plugins, and we mount the publishers streams on this streaming plugin RTP forward. And again, we can just go, hundreds of these streaming plugin servers to support very, very large webinar type events. So as a part of this scaling strategy, we did contribute to the Janus support. I think it's worth mentioning this. I think collaboration and contribution to these type of projects is important, and this is what we did here. Was we allowed for batch configure support for the streaming plugin, which allows us to send all streams that a user needs to subscribe to in one request. Our team was very proud of this small contribution, but it's made under the Janus code base, so we're quite pleased about that. Okay, so this is an interesting one. Me and Dennis can have a fight later about this, but I'm sure there's some DevOps people asking, why have you picked this scaling strategy? It's more in-house, it's more our own internal logic, rather than going towards automated scaling strategies such as Kubernetes. And for us, we feel more comfortable taking complete ownership of the scaling logic. So we're better placed to understand it, debug it, and move towards improving that logic, rather than questioning some Kubernetes cluster. What happened that time? There was no server there for all them users. For us, we just prefer the ownership, and rather than giving it away to some other tech stack right now. But me and Dennis maybe could debate about that, the pros and cons of that later. So ultimately, we want to own the logic. If it fails, it's all on us. It's on us and our development team. So let's think the best way of doing this. So we have been experimenting with Saul's Skynet project, and we're taking another risk. We were going to generate the transcript of this meeting and then also the summary, just to show how we're trying to stitch other open source projects into our tech stack. We're just putting it out there and just seeing how our customers receive it. We do like the idea of using custom prompts in Skynet. We don't know exactly how we can offer enhancements to it or improvements, but yeah, that's roughly where we are. Because when I found Saul's project at that FODSOM demonstration, he was using, he's trying to solve very similar problems we have, where we want to be careful about the customer's data. We want to keep it private. We cannot be sending data off to the US to get warehoused, processed, whatever these big players are doing with our data. So we want them all locally hosted LLMs, and we were trying to make them cost effective. So using quantized models, so that makes them more accessible and more accessible as more building blocks to make a better product. I think I don't want to take too much of Saul's thunder because I think he might talk about his Skynet and I think his presentation is tomorrow. So what I can try to do here is another quick little demo. Let me see with the Alt and Tab. Whoops. Escape, of course. Yeah. Right, so I've made this very primitive little UI. It's just to give you a visual of how our API works. It's just to make it a bit more visual. So from here, I've already saved the room from where we're doing this presentation. And I'm just hoping we can get a transcript for it. All right, so that's the transcript. It's just a JSON file with each speaker. From there, I'm going to try and run a summary of it, and I hope this works. And we're just using Saul's Skynet straight out of the box. It's amazing how accessible he left it and how easy it is for us to use. So there's the summary started. Now it's in progress. I'll just double check his back end, and it's away now processing. So if you want to try and pass a few minutes while that runs, Robert, that'd be great.
So while Conan performs his magic trick, I get to distract you with a bit of additional information. But basically, what Conan's done here is he's taken the talk that we've just given and is running it through the summarization engine. So it was transcribed and is now being summarized as we speak. We'll look at that in just a second. So this is the first time in 20 years we've printed stickers. You all have some of those in your goodie bags. So yeah, exciting times for us as a company. We've also given all of you a 50% discount in your goodie bag. So you can either use those yourselves, or if you happen to know how to build this stuff yourself, maybe give them to a friend, you know, who might need them more than you do. But that's our offer for all JanusCon members. If you were so inclined, these are our social media. We're currently a little bit poor on followers on Instagram, so please join us. Please follow us. I can see you all raising your phones in great desire, so that's amazing. Thank you. And another little toy I have is something that we built, which is basically a digital Samba GPT playground. It's just a demo. It's not actually part of our product or anything like that, but it is a fun thing that we did. And if you have not played around with ChatGPT's Assistance API, I recommend you have a little fiddle. It's quite fun. What we did here is we trained the assistant on our own API documentation, and I can actually help it. So let's just say hello because we're polite, right? And let's see if it's awake. So this now fires off a message to the digital Samba GPT, which is powered by ChatGPT in this case. Again, not part of our product. This is just like a standalone application, which allows you to develop against digital Samba's API. And let's say, write me some PHP code to generate a room. And let's see what it does. So again, and what's interesting actually is that I built this application myself without I'm not a great coder by any means. So I actually used ChatGPT to build this app from A to Z. I didn't write a single line of code, which is absolutely insane, in my opinion, that this is something that's possible. And you'll see that it's going to output in a little while when it's ready, because ChatGPT, at least at the time that I was using it, did not allow you to stream the response out to you, but it's going to give us some PHP code, which again, it's trained on digital Samba's API, and there we go. So we now have some hopefully working PHP code, which, as I had shown at the beginning of the presentation, really now understands and helps you get started as a developer with our tool. And I think that this is something also for us as developers to keep in mind to when we write API documentation for our products, make sure that it's machine readable, make sure that it's well structured, make sure that it's accurate, because as you know, these tools often do not have access to the most recent information. And if you want the GPTs to be able to, help other people with your applications, then you have to make sure that this information is out there and ready, because this is how it's going to be used in the future or in the present. Conan, I hope.
We can see if it's ran through. Just get this wrapped up. Whoops. Right, so summary. Oh, it's still in progress. That's that now, I think, yeah.
Go back to the slide deck.
It's been 5 minutes. May have a little chink in the armor there.
All right, good. Well, thanks. So we're very close to the end. Very close to the end of our speech. Please do connect with us on LinkedIn or catch us later on if you have any questions. If you have any questions now, please fire away while we wait for our summarization engine to complete its work. Oh, there it is. Hello. So Conan is going to read out this summary.
Let's read this out. Has developed Digital Samba, a product allowing developers to easily integrate video, conference them to their applications with just a few lines of code. The solution is designed to be simple, customizable, and scalable, using the Janus media engine and customized SDK and API. The company's architecture includes physical servers and cloud-based infrastructure with bespoke logic for scaling based on metrics such as CPU usage and bandwidth. They also contribute to the open source Janus project and have implemented a feature for summarizing meeting notes. So, it's pretty good. It's fun. And we'll be taking that out of development next week and just giving it to our end users. And it's a fun little tool and it's quite good. And thank you, Saul, for it's useful.
Are there any questions for Conan and Robert? I see one in the back.
Hi, I'm Maciej from Software Mention. First of all, thank you for your courage to run the live demo. It's always appreciated. And the question that I have on my mind is that you mentioned that the solution is privacy first, and I assume that the servers are located exclusively in Europe. If this is correct, how do you deal with the use cases where the end clients are, I don't know, from the United States? How does it work from the latency standpoint? Do you have any lessons learned over there?
So we are we use EU-based service providers. We have multiple data centers in Europe, but we have been marketing, it's probably better Rob's thing, we've been marketing the business as EU-centric, so we're looking for EU customers, and we're focused on that market right now. There is a potential that it's all Docker components, it's modular, so we can just lift that up and just plonk it in the States if and when the business need arose for that. So yeah, that's roughly where we are with that.
So thanks for the question. It's of course an important one, and this is very much it was a business decision for us to focus on the European market. As I said, privacy is ingrained into the digital Samba culture. This comes with a trade-off. You can't do everything well. At the same time, we do have opportunities in the US, and as Conan says, we will solve them when and as we need.
We are running a bit way too late. So if we have other questions for Robert and Conan, please feel free to reach them, because we have lunch ready for us. And then we come back here at about 2 p.m. with the talk by Paolo, where we'll be talking about a similar kind of presentation. So I'm interested in checking how that will pan out. So Have a good lunch, everybody. It's the same place where we had the coffee break before. And thanks again to Digital Samba for presenting. Thanks.